Hi, I'm Gareth Green, and in this video we're going to discover how you can modulate, how you can change key by using one single note. Okay, well, here's a bit of music on the screen. Have a listen to this. Okay, now what have we done in that piece of music? Well, we've started in the key of F major. And in the second bar, we're suddenly in the key of D flat major. D flat major's got 5 flats, F major only have 1, so that's quite a journey. And then what do we do on the second line of this score? We go into A major, and A major has 3 sharps. So we've gone from a key with 5 flats to a key with 3 sharps, which is miles away. So you might well be used to modulating from one key to another by using something we call a pivot chord. So I might start in F major that's got 1 flat, and I might decide that I want to modulate to C major. C major's got no flat. So what do? I start in F major, that's fine. And then at some point I've just got to use a pivot chord, in other words, a chord that belongs to F major and to C major. So I could go back to my first chord because that's chord 1 in F major, but it's also chord 4 in C major. So I use that as a pivot chord. Then I introduce my B natural that takes me to C major. So that's a kind of commonly used kind of modulation when you go from one key to one of its neighboring keys. So F major could go to C major, which is just cancelling the 1 flat you've got. Or we could go the other way. We could go F major to B flat major because B flat major's got 2 flats. So we're just adding a flat. So we start in F major, and then I could use that first chord again and then introduce an E flat, and I suddenly go to B flat major. I could do something like start in F major, go to its relative minor, D minor. So I could use my first bar, and then I could say, now the chord at the end of that first bar is chord 6 in F major, but it's also chord 1 in D minor. So I could carry on from there into D minor and then introduce a C sharp, and now I'm in D minor, the relative minor. So these are all modulations to closely related keys, where conventionally we find what we call a pivot chord, a chord that belongs to the key we're leaving and to the key we're joining. So we can say at the point of the pivot, that's our point of change. Everything before that was in the old key. Everything after that is in the new key. So once we've been through the pivot chord, we just need to establish the accidentals, the flats, the sharps, whatever we need to go to that new key, and we're away. And that's great. And it served composers really well for many years during the Baroque and classical periods. When we got to the 19th century, composers started to say, well, you know what, it's a little bit limiting if we can only go to neighbouring keys. So why shouldn't we be able to go to keys further afield? And one way in which they did this was just to do something utterly dramatic, stop in one key and just start again in another key without any pivot chords or anything. But another way of doing it was to use a single note. Okay, so this is what we call a pivot note. This is what I'm trying to demonstrate in this particular exercise. So let's unpack it and see what's going on. And let me tell you, first of all, what our first pivot note is. Well, you see, when we come to the third chord, we have F in this tonic chord of D minor. We then follow with a tonic chord of D flat major, which also has an F in it. So this F is a common note between those 2 chords. It's simply a pivot note. So we're not now looking for a whole pivot chord. We're just saying, let's take one note and treat that as the pivot. So I start in F major and I go chord 1, chord 5, 7, chord 6, and then I say I'm going to use this F as a pivot, so I then go 1 in D flat major, so I hear the F as chord 6 in F major. Now I hear the F in chord 1 in D flat major, and I carry on in D flat major. So you see how the pivot note works, and that's how we can be much more extreme with modulation. So I've gone from F major with 1 flat to D flat major with 5 flats. Opens up many more doors. Now then, we also then have this rather more drastic modulation from D flat major to A major. So remember, that's a key with 5 flats moving straight into a key with 3 sharps. Well, how can we go to such an extreme place? Where is my pivot note? Well, we're looking at this chord here at the end of the second bar, and we're looking at this note here, D flat. Now, you might look at this chord straight after it and say, well, hang on a minute, where's my D flat gone? It's still there, but I've respelled it enharmonically. So just in case you're not sure about that word enharmonic, enharmonic means that it sounds the same, but it looks different. So this time I'm using a pivot note of D flat that becomes C sharp, because D flat and C sharp are exactly the same note. They're just enharmonically different. So not only can you use a pivot note that stays the same, but you can also use a pivot note enharmonically and simply respell D flat as C sharp. So if I play you this chord followed by this chord, let's hear what happens. I've got this chord, which is chord 6 in D flat major, and then I'm saying I'm respelling the D flat at the top as C sharp. And now I've gone to chord 1, in second inversion in this case, in A major. So that feels like quite a dramatic move, but it works because I've got a note in common between the 2 chords. Doesn't have to be in the top part, could be in any other part. It's always a bit smoother if you can use a kind of repetition of that common note in the same part. I mean, you don't have to. You could decide that you're going to stick that note from the soprano part to the tenor part, but it's going to make a slightly smoother transition and slightly kind of modify the shock of the extreme modulation if you keep it in the same part. So if you're doing this for the first time, that's just a little word of advice that you might consider taking on board there. But hopefully you can see and hear how this suddenly enables you to modulate to keys well beyond those immediate keys. So have another listen to it in the light of all we've said, but particularly have a listen for this pivot note, those 2 Fs there, and this pivot note where we have an enharmonic change between the D flat and the C sharp, bearing in mind that we're in F major, D flat major, A major. Okay, so this is how it all fits together. So we've gone through 3 very different keys in the space of 4 bars. So that's quite radical stuff, but it hangs together. It sounds pretty good. So I'm hoping that's going to be useful to those people who want to get more adventurous with their modulation simply by using that one note. Well, if you've found this a helpful video, you might like to go to our website, www.mmcourses.co.uk, where you can click on courses and you can find plenty of material there that would help bolster the kind of work we've just been looking at in this video, like the advanced theory course or the keyboard harmony course that we've got there, for example. So have a look and see if that's going to be a useful follow-up for you. Also, if you click on Maestros on that homepage, you might be interested in joining one of our Maestros groups. Level 1 is a kind of support level. It opens up various perks. Level 2 means that you have access to a monthly live stream amongst other benefits. And level 3 means you have access to 2 monthly live streams amongst other benefits. And you can also get discounts on our courses. Much more to find out about Maestros if that's for you. But it's basically our international community of lovely, like-minded musicians getting together, sharing ideas, learning together, requesting topics that I'm very happy to cover, that kind of thing. Anyway, lots to look at the website, so have a look and see what's for you.